Sunday, June 21st. I don't believe this, Mom fumed. I spent 3 hours waiting to get into the store yesterday and I forgot to buy soap. We can live without soap for a week, Miranda said. Don't worry about it, Mom. We can't live without it, Mom said sharply. Not with all those chemicals you work with. It's dangerous enough for the baby. You've got to wash them off whenever you can. No, I'll go back. Maybe the line won't be so long today. Mom, it's always worse on Sunday, Miranda said. I'll go, John said. Soap and what else? I hate it when you go, Mom said. It's like taking advantage of the system. That's exactly what it is, Alex said, and it's the one advantage we can take. Thanks, John. I don't think we need anything else. I'll go with you, Carlos said. I could use a breath of fresh air. Good luck finding some, Alex said. John didn't blame Carlos for wanting to go out. The tension was palpable. Mom outburst about soap had felt like a volcano spewing steam. The market's about 5 blocks away, John told Carlos as they began to walk. Mom does the shopping Saturday afternoons because her school day ends at noon. How many markets are there in White Birch? Carlos asked. 2 or 3, I guess, he said, at different ends of town. Sexton, with a third of the population, had 4 markets, although he'd never been inside one of them. Carlos grinned. We were cleaning out a town, he said, back when I was in Maine, and the townspeople, the ones who were left, got it into their heads to use a supermarket as a fortress. I don't know what they thought they were doing. There must have been a couple of hundred people in there. How do you get them out? John asked. Tear gas, Carlos replied. Most of them surrendered. We made them scrub the supermarket down. Didn't want the clavers tasting tear gas in their lettuce. Do you miss the Marines? John asked. A little, Carlos said. The work was dirty, but there was the sense of, I don't know, brotherhood, I guess. We were all in it together, no matter how bad things got. But being a guard's good, too. Fewer people to salute. My brother Matt is a courier, John said. He seems to like it. It's a good job, Carlos said. And any job's a good job nowadays, he laughed. Never thought Alex would end up a bus driver. He was planning on being president. Well, that didn't happen, John said. Now he'll be satisfied owning a truck. Doesn't look like that's going to happen either, Carlos said. Why? John asked. You ever play poker, kid? Carlos asked. John nodded. You know how you can be hot? Every card you touch turns into a flush and inside straight. You start with a pair, end up with a full house. I've never had that kind of luck, John said. It feels like it's never going to end, Carlos said. It's magic. You keep upping the ante, especially if you need the money for a truck, and then the cards go cold on you. So you keep betting more, figuring your luck will return, only it doesn't. It never does. You gamble away your share of the money, John said. That's Alex's attitude, Carlos said. I prefer to think it as an investment gone sour. Well, Lisa will be happy, John thought. Miranda will be her grub for a long, long time. The line from the market was 2 blocks long. They'll be here till curfew, Carlos said. John nodded. It was lucky Mom shopped on Saturday. He and Carlos walked to the head of the line. John showed one of the guards his Claver ID badge. Come on in, the guard said, escorting them into the store. I just need soap, John said. Where's the soap? The guard shouted. Aisle 4 on the left. The guard walked with John and Carlos to the shelf with soap. There were 4 bars. Take 'em all, the guard said. You're entitled. John hesitated. He could get any girl he wanted in White Birch for a bar of soap. A quick look at Carlos showed he was thinking the same thing. 3'll do, John said. He left 1 bar on the shelf and walked out of the store, escorted by the guards and Carlos. Here, he said to the guard, handing him one of the bars. Thank you, sir, the guard said. John handed the 2nd bar to Carlos. Have fun, he said. Carlos took the soap and pulled out his knife and cut it into quarters. 4 quarters for girls, he said. They'll probably take 8s, but I'll be generous. Just don't tell Mom, John said. She sent me for 1 bar, and if she knew I took more, she'd get really mad. Carlos laughed. I like your mother, he said. She's got guts. I like Miranda, too. That kind of surprised me. You mean because she's Alex's kind of girl? John asked. I didn't even know Alex liked girls, Carlos said. I always figured he'd bring some boy home to meet the folks. John laughed. He's crazy about Miranda, he said, and he's never made a pass at me. No, I know, Carlos said. I could tell how much he loved her when he saw me in Texas. Funny, he never needed my approval before, but he wasn't going to marry her without me, okay? Not after what she did to Julie. John stopped and then clutched the bar of soap. If he asked what Miranda had done, Carlos would never tell him, and whatever it was Carlos knew, John had to find out. I didn't know you knew, John said, trying to sound casual. Oh, yeah, I know, Carlos said. Alex told me. It threw me. It still does. Miranda seems so sweet you wouldn't expect her. Well, she's your sister. You know her better than I do. It surprised me, too, John said, burning with the need to know what Miranda had done. When I found out, but things were desperate. That's what Alex said, Carlos said, rolling the soap quarters in his hand. I gotta tell you, though, I've killed plenty of people, probably some kids, too. You get the order to shoot, you don't look to see who you're shooting, but I don't think I could ever kill someone the way that sister yours did. So cold, Alex said. She did to spare Julie. Sleeping pills, so Julie wouldn't know what was gonna happen. Pill over her mouth to smother her to death. Miranda swore to him Julie slept through the whole thing, that the last thing she did was pray, so she died in a state of grace. That kind of thing's important to Alex. At least it used to be. Now, I don't know. He married his sister's murderer. Now, what they thought is catches them. Alex would forgive Miranda anything, John said slowly. He said she got the pills from him, Carlos said. The idea, too. You're right about those times being desperate. My sister Bree, the way she died, completely alone, no one rescuing her. Maybe it's better what Miranda did. Julie paralyzed like that, she would have died anyway. Well, it's water under the bridge. Alex and Miranda expecting a baby. He'll get the truck eventually. Alex always gets what he wants. John nodded. You know what I want right now? Carlos asked. A girl. A nice quarter of a bar of soap girl. Want to join me, John? 3 quarters here. I won't miss one. John looked at his watch, hoping Carlos wouldn't see how hard he was shaking. Better not, he said. I want to get to the next bus home, and I've got to drop the soap off with Mom. Tell them I'm still breathing the fresh air, Carlos said with a laugh. Good knowing you, John. I'll think of you 4 more times. John managed to laugh. He watched as Carlos walked back towards the center of town. 5 minutes, he told himself. 5 minutes to go back to Mom's, hand her the soap, kiss her goodbye, say goodbye to Alex and Miranda, and catch the Clower bus home. 5 minutes. He'd survived 3 years of Julie's haunting him. He could survive another 5 minutes. Monday, June 22nd. Sarah was in bed. They were holding each other tightly, shutting out the world with the power of their love. I love you, he whispered to her. You killed me, John, she said. It wasn't Sarah, it was Julie, and she wasn't holding him because she couldn't hold anything. She was lying there, still as a corpse. You killed me, she said. You kill everything you love. John sat upright, his heart pounding. You can't haunt me anymore, he whispered. I didn't kill you, Miranda did. He thought of the little else since yesterday afternoon. He told Lisa about the visit, told her about Carlos gambling away the truck money. Lisa had tried not to seem pleased, but he could tell she was. She had a gift of knowing what was the best for other people, and she knew what was the best for Miranda and her baby. He'd sat at lunch with Tyler, Zach, and Ryan, and had hardly listened to a word they said. He'd benched press, stretched, run, and practiced, his body knowing what to do while his mind was elsewhere, focused on Miranda killing Julie, on Miranda cold-bloodedly drugging Julie, then smothering the life out of her. He tried to figure out who else knew and decided no one did. Dad and Lisa would never forgive her. Matt might have, but Miranda wouldn't have wanted Sil to know. And Mom? Mom was closer to Miranda than she was to either him or Matt. But even if Mom could have forgiven her, she couldn't have kept it a secret. If Mom knew, they'd all know. And since they didn't, she couldn't. No, the only person Miranda told was Alex. She told him on the road to Sexton, and Alex left her. Carl was right. Alex moved Miranda, but he loved Julie too and felt responsible for her. If Carlos had said no to the marriage, Alex wouldn't have returned. But Carlos had said yes, allowing Alex to marry his sister's killer. And John spent 3 years feeling responsible for something that had never truly been his fault. He thought about the final day harder than he had ever before. Yes, he wanted Julie. He was a teenage boy and she was a teenage girl, and that was the nature of things. If Julie hadn't been so religious, or more to the point, if she hadn't been so scared of Alex, who was so religious, she would have had no reservations about making love. It had been their last chance, probably the last time they'd ever see each other. John knew how he had pushed too hard, and he understood why Julie had panicked, but panic was an irrational response. Julie knew him and loved him, and should have understood that he would never hurt her. But for her, fear of Alex was stronger than her love of John, which was pretty ironic given that Alex loved her murderer. Julie had panicked. John had gone out after her, had risked his own life to protect her, and she continued to panic. By that point, he realized she must have had been as terrified by the storm as she had been of him. The rain, the wind, the hail must have had driven her into a wild, irrational terror, and she was past the point of understanding that all he wanted was to keep her from harm. Then the wind had lifted her and thrown her down. John had done everything he could to protect her, but she'd resisted and paid the price. John remembered everything about that moment. He acknowledged, as he never had before, that he'd been an instant where he thought, she's dead and she'll never tell what happened. But she wasn't dead, and he didn't leave her there to die. He could have. The storm was raging. No one knew where they were. He could have risked it, gone back to the house, claimed they had gotten separated, hoping she'd been dead by the time they found her. He thought of all of that then. For a moment, he'd considered it. Instead, he'd gone back to and led them to her. Julie could have accused him of trying to rape her. She could have claimed she ran into the storm because she feared for her life in the house with him. Everyone would have believed her. John could have told the truth, sworn he would never have hurt her, and they would have turned against him anyway. Julie hadn't told. She loved him enough not to. Maybe she was waiting for him to see her, waiting to have a chance to forgive him. If she'd lived only a few days longer, he would have gone to her. Saving Lisa and Gabe was his first priority, but after that, he would have gone to beg for Julie's forgiveness, and he knew she would have forgiven him. But Miranda killed her before he and Julie had that chance. All these years he blamed himself for Julie's death, but it was Miranda who was responsible. John understood why Miranda had done it. Julie was paralyzed. Miranda believed there was no cure, but maybe she was strong. Maybe they could have gotten Julie to a doctor somehow, somewhere. Or maybe Julie's prayers and Alex's and Lisa's and Syl's would have been answered, and a miracle would have happened, and Julie would have been cured. Dad thought Lisa's survival, Gabe's survival was miraculous. Maybe Julie could have had a miracle of her own. Only Miranda hadn't let that happen. They were Alex's pills, but Alex hadn't told her to kill his sister. Miranda came up with that all on her own. Months later, she confessed to Alex what she'd done. By then, Julie was just a memory, a sister Alex had loved, but one he'd fought with, one he thought of as a burden he'd been trying to be free of for over a year. Carlos said, "Sure, Mary, our sister's murderer." Alex took that as a blessing, raced back to Miranda. It was as though Julie had never existed. She existed for John, though. She haunted his dreams. She kept him from having a kind of chance with a girl like Sarah, only grubber girls who could be bought for a quarter of a bar of soap. Miranda had done that to him. Miranda had murdered Julie, and she had murdered everything that was good in him. And now Miranda was going to be living in his house. It was a fantasy to think he'd be able to avoid her. She'd work in the greenhouse, eat with Val and Carrie, sleep in the garage, but she'll be there. She'll be running in to check on her baby, the one Julie would never have. Officially, she'd be a domestic, but she'd feel like Lisa's stepdaughter, Gabe's half sister, John's sister. Every time he'd see her, he'd picture her putting the pillow over Julie's face, holding it down until she could never breathe again. John, wake up. I want to play. Gabe had rushed into the room and jumped on top of him. Carrie? John shouted. Carrie, get in here. Carrie ran in. Gabe, stop that, she said. John will play with you later. I want to play now, Gabe yelled. Carrie walked over to the bed to pull Gabe away, but as she did, John rose, and by the time she reached Gabe, John's hand was up and he was ready to strike her. Carrie froze. Gabe began crying. John pulled his hand back. He'd never hit a girl before, not even a grub, but he knew if he hit Carrie once, he would never stop. He would batter her with his fists until she was unconscious, until she was dead. Gabe ran out of the room and Carrie ran right behind him. John stood absolutely still, trying to catch his breath, trying to regain his sanity. It wasn't Carrie, he had thought. Nothing against Carrie. It would it could have been Val. It could have been Sarah. It was Miranda he wanted to kill. Miranda, who killed the girl he loved, leaving him to drown in guilt for the rest of his life. Thursday, June 25th. John answered the phone as soon as he walked in. Oh, John, I'm glad I got you, Lisa said. I'm here at the hospital with Miranda. Miranda, he said, trying to sound like a loving brother. Is she all right? Yes, I think so, Lisa said. She passed out at the greenhouse this afternoon. They sent her here by ambulance. And the baby, John asked. Fine, Lisa said. I'm sure Miranda is also. It's hard to be 8 months pregnant and on your feet all day long, and the greenhouse are so hot and humid, but they're not taking any chances. They're going to keep her in the hospital for the remainder of her pregnancy. Her blood pressure is very high, and they think it's better for her to be monitored. The paperwork's all done, so officially she works for me. That's why they called me. Have you seen her? John asked. No, not yet, Lisa. It's been less than an hour, and they're still checking her out. Everyone tells me she's nothing to worry about, but of course I feel I should talk to her and make sure she's all right. I don't know how long that's going to take. Alex may not realize anything's wrong until he gets to White Birch, but he's bound to panic when he doesn't see her there. And Laura will be hysterical. My guess is they'll get to a phone before curfew and call us to see if we know where she is. I'll probably be home by then, but just in case, I want you to know what's happening. You can tell them Miranda's getting the best possible care. Will they be able to see her? John asked. I'm not sure, Lisa said. Laura won't be able to get it passed. I know that. I, I might be able to pull some strings and get one for Alex, since he works in Sexton anyway, but I can't be sure. The rules are very stringent about where grows are allowed. If they ask, tell them you don't know, but I'll be visiting Miranda whenever I can, and you will also, and we'll keep them posted. John knew he would never visit Miranda. The thought of seeing her repulsed him, but he wouldn't tell Lisa that, or Mom or Alex. He'd find excuses just as he knew he'd find excuses when she came to work for Lisa. John, I've got to go, Lisa said. Give Gabe a big kiss from me and tell Val to have my dinner ready. If there's any more news, I'll call. Thanks, Lisa, John said and hung up. He gave Val the message and went to the nursery to check on Gabe. Carrie backed away when he entered. He didn't blame her. Lisa got in before Alex called. She told him what she'd told John, adding only that she'd seen Miranda briefly and she was much better. I think I calmed him down, she said to John after she hung up. Of course, he wants to break every rule and rush to her side, but that's the worst thing he can do. It won't do Miranda any good if he's thrown in jail. They'll send him to the mines, John said. That won't do Miranda any good either, Lisa replied. But there's a chance I can get him a pass. Someone's been after me for a while for an Ivy League domestic. I might be able to do some swapping. One Yaley for two state college grads and a pass for Alex as a thank you. It might work. John didn't care. Alice could end up in the mines as far as he was concerned, and Miranda and her baby could follow him there. He felt bad for Mom, but that was it. Someday He decided he'll tell Mom the truth about Miranda. Mom would never forgive her. Miranda would be dead to her, just as she was to John. Friday, June 16th. When Alex calls tonight, you take it. All right, John, Lisa said. Okay, John said, although he had no desire to talk with Alex. Why are you avoiding him? I spent half of the day trying to get him to pass, Lisa said, but the family with the Yaley wouldn't give her up, and the family that wanted a Yaley wouldn't take anything else. I even offered Val to sweeten the pot, but Tulane wasn't good enough for them. You would have transferred Val? John asked. He knew how much Lisa depended on her. Miranda and Alex are family, Lisa said. Val isn't. If for Hal and me, Miranda would never have met Alex. In some ways, I'm more of a grandmother to their baby than Laura is. John stared at her. Don't give me that look, John Evans, Lisa said. Yes, I know I'm taking Miranda on a domestic, and that's not the same as what I've done for you, but it's the best I can do. A decent home with clean air for the baby. A year or two from now, things could be completely different. Who knows? But the important thing is to stay alive and healthy, and the best way to do this is by playing by the rules. Even if the rules stink, John said. They're not as bad for us, Lisa said. You might try to be more grateful for what you have and don't get any ideas about beating up the domestics, John. Carrie told you? John asked. Gabe did, Lisa said. He was very upset. Carrie says you didn't hit her, but she was afraid you were going to. John, what's the matter with you? It's one thing to tell Val she has to get up early in the morning, even though you should have asked me first, but abusing the domestics? I don't care what your friends do. In this house, everyone is treated with respect. I told her I was sorry, John said. I've been having a bad dream, and Gabe woke me up like that, and I couldn't tell what was real and what was nightmare. You better learn the difference, Lisa said. I have enough problems around here without Carrie reporting you for battery. I was going to slap her, John said. That's not battery. Carrie said you looked out of control, Lisa said. Oh, John, I don't even know why we're arguing about this. I have a headache and I'm going to bed. When Alex called, tell him I couldn't get the pass, but I called the hospital this afternoon and they said Miranda's doing fine. He and Laura shouldn't worry. Miranda's getting excellent care, and it's much better for her to be in the hospital than working 10-hour days in the greenhouses. Oh, and John, you visit Miranda next, and keep it to yourself that she's family. Just say I asked you to check up on her because she's my domestic and I'm too busy to go. John knew he was going to visit Miranda, but he also knew not to argue. He'd go to the hospital and ask how she was doing without actually seeing her. That should be enough to shut everybody up. Good night, Lisa, he said. Feel better. Lisa paused before going upstairs. You're a good boy, John, she said. Sometimes I think you lose sight of that fact. Give my love to Alex. Tell him things will seem better in the morning. Saturday, June 27th. I'm here to see Miranda Morales. How she's doing, John said. My stepmother asked me to. Miranda's one of her domestics. She'll be in the grubber wing then, the nurse said. Walk down the hallway to the left and take the stairs up. Thank you, John said. He found the door to the stairway, climbed the flights, and saw immediate difference once he opened the door to the third floor. The floors were filthy, waste paper baskets full. Though only half the lights were on. John knew Sexton prided itself on having a grubber's wing in the hospital, but it was clear that people who bragged about it had never actually seen it. He peeked into the various rooms. Almost all were empty, but in the handful of rooms they were occupied. There were 6 beds where 4 were meant to be. We don't encourage slackers, the only nurse on the floor said. Make things too comfortable for grubs. They'll never go back to work. John nodded. I can see that might be a problem, she said. He said, I'm here to check up on Miranda Morales. Why? The nurse asked. She's our domestic, John said. My stepmother wanted me to see how she's doing. Tell your stepmother she's doing fine, the nurse said. The baby's doing about 3 weeks. The grub should be back at work a day or so later. Do they usually recover that fast? John asked. Grubs recover when we tell them when they'll recover. the nurse said. Everyone is making a big fuss over her because she's the only girl in here due to have a baby. No Clavers, no Grubs, just her. She's going to be spoiled rotten by the time the baby comes, and your stepmother's going to have a lot of work ahead, whipping her into shape. I'm glad it's not my problem. You tell your stepmother that, and let me get back to work, all right? All right, John said. Thank you. It's my job, the nurse said. A lousy one, but a job. Sunday, June 28th. It was a 5-hour drive to Hilton, Tennessee, and by the time the bus got there, not even Coach seemed all that interested in the match. John played the first half and scored 3 times. Sexton ended up winning 7-2, but there were no tirades on the drive back because of the low score. Instead, all of them, Coach, the team, and the guards, got drunk on vodka. Endless speeches were made about the complete and utter destruction the White Birch Groves were going to face on the 4th of July. We'll leave them drowning in their own blood, Tyler shouted, and everyone laughed and cheered, John included. Better that way they drudged and smothered, he thought. Better that way than drugged and smothered, he thought. At least the Grubs would have a chance. That's more than Miranda had offered Julie. Monday, June 29th. Hey, Evans, Ryan said in the locker room after practice. Looking forward to Saturday? Sure, John replied. We'll slaughter the Grubs. Make them beg for mercy. Tyler laughed. It's the Grubber girls that'll be begging. Show them no mercy, Zachary said. The plan is to stay in White Birch after the match, Ryan said. Right, Tyler? Right, Tyler said. Make the 18th look like a picnic. You with us, Evans? John knew there was only one way he could answer. Can't. Wait, he said. Tyler walked over to him and slapped him on the back. That's a good slip, he said. Now let's get out of here before Coach makes us run more laps. Tuesday, June 30th. The sound of a knock on the door startled all of them. John got up from the dinner table, walked to the hallway, and opened the door. There stood Sarah. Sarah? What are you doing here? He whispered. I have to talk to you, she said. John checked. There was no one standing outside. It's not a good idea, he said. I'm sick and tired of your good ideas, she replied. We're going to get things straightened out once and for all. Who is it? Lisa called. It's Sarah, he replied. Invite her in, Val said. There's plenty of food. Some other time, Sarah said. Thank you anyway. She gestured to John. Come on, she said. John followed Sarah to the garage. There was a cot there now, and Lisa had found it in the attic and had Val carry it. Sarah noticed it right away. This is new, she said, sitting down on it. Lisa's getting a new domestic, John said. She'll sleep in here. Cozy, Sarah said. Oh, John, stop looking like that. You can sit down. I won't bite. John made sure to sit at the other end of the cot. Your mother came to the clinic on Sunday, Sarah said. She told us about Miranda and asked Daddy if he could check up on her. Last night, Daddy decided he'd ask for Alex to drive him to the hospital. He'll see if he can slip Alex in to see Miranda while he's there. Is that why you came here? John asked. To tell me that? No, Sarah said. I wanted you to know, but that's not why I'm here. She took a deep breath. I like Luke, but he can't keep a secret. He told me all about you and Tyler. Know how you feel like you have to protect me. I wanted to slug him. No, I wanted to slug you and then him. Tyler isn't a joke, Sarah, John said. He could hurt you. Tyler's an idiot, Sarah replied, which I think you'd know by now. Anyway, I explained to Mr. Can't keep a secret that my uncle is a United States Senator, and anyone who even breathes on me the wrong way is mind meat. Mind meat, John said. That's what we call them in the old enclave, she said. I'm sure Luke ran off to tell Tyler right away. I'm glad for you, John said. I'm glad there's someone to protect you. There's something else, she said. John, I've thought about you and Julie, what you told me, what you didn't tell me. I asked you outright if you'd raped her, but you didn't admit it. You didn't say anything. You wanted me to ask, didn't you? You wanted me to hate you so Tyler wouldn't hurt me. Well, he can't, so you can tell me the truth. You didn't rape her, did you? John shook his head. She thought I would, he said. She ran into the tornadoes to escape. For a long time, I felt like I'd killed her. He thought briefly of telling Sarah the truth, that Miranda had murdered Julie, but Sarah spoke before he decided what to say. I know that what you feel like, she said. I feel like I killed my mother. I don't understand, John said. My mother had kidney disease, Sarah said. They tested my sister first, but she wasn't a match. Then they tested me, and I was. Mother was on dialysis, and that kept her going. But the sooner she had the transplant, the better. Mother and I weren't close, not like she was with Abby. When Abby found out she wasn't a match, she cried. When I found out I was, I cried too. How old were you, John asked. 13, Sarah replied. You can't just walk in and donate a kidney when you're that young. It has to be approved. So away, they interviewed me away from my parents and asked if I was okay with it. And I burst into tears and said I didn't want to do it, and I felt like I was being forced to. You were being honest, John said. At the cost of my mother's life, Sarah said. They told my parents I was too young and mother could have to stay on dialysis until another donor could be found. 5 weeks later, Abby died. My parents were devastated. I thought I could make things better by agreeing to the surgery, but by then she'd stopped. They'd stopped transplants. Nobody was manufacturing the drugs you need to keep the body from rejecting the organs, so everyone who ever had a transplant died. There were lots of deaths you didn't hear about, like the diabetics who couldn't get insulin and the people with cancer whose chemo was stopped. But your mother only died a few months ago, John said. My uncle pulled the strings and got us selected for an enclave where she could get dialysis, Sarah replied. Things were okay until they decided to close the dialysis center units. The people on dialysis weren't doing enough to justify the resources. It took mother 13 days to die. Daddy didn't leave her side the entire time, when he should have been working. The Enclave Board didn't like that, so they held a hearing, decided to expel him. My uncle got Daddy the job here. Even if you'd agreed to the transplant, your mother would have died, John said. She might have died sooner. I know, she replied, the way you know things in your head, but not in your heart. I kept thinking mother would have been the only person who had never needed drugs, or they might have kept making the drugs, or we would have found a supply big enough to last until they started making them again. And Abby was so angry with me for not agreeing. We hardly spoke the month before she died. I hold that in my heart also. It wasn't your fault, John persisted. It doesn't matter, Sarah declared. In my heart, I'm always going to feel guilty, just the way you do about Julie. I don't think there's anyone else in this world who could understand how I feel. He could never tell her the truth. He could never say it was Miranda who killed Julie, who kept her from the kind of miracle Sarah dreamed of for her mother. She'd take it as a rejection, as his way of saying he was better than she was. She needed him to be guilty. It didn't matter if it was a lie. I love you, he said, because that was a truth she could accept. Hold me, John, she whispered. I can't bear to be alone anymore. Wednesday, July 1st. Daddy's arranged for Alex to drive him to White Birch today, Sarah told John as they walked to the bus. They're going to stop at the hospital first so Daddy can check up on Miranda. He'll try to get Alex in to see her. That's nice of him, John said. Daddy likes your family, Sarah replied. So do I. Are you coming to the match on Saturday? John asked. See me slaughter those white birch grubs? You make it sound so appealing, she replied, but I'll be at the clinic all day. The clinic's closed on Saturdays, John said. Besides, it's July 4th. That's why we're staying open, Sarah said. Laborers will have the day off. It'll give them a chance to come in. We're staying open until the last one leaves, and then we'll get a driver to take us home. What'll you be doing after the match? Staying in White Birch to celebrate, John said. We'll get home somehow. Will you burn any more schools down? She asked. John stood still. You know about that? He asked. It's true. Sarah asked. I thought maybe Tyler made it up. Tyler told you? John asked. He grabbed Sarah by the shoulders. When? What did he say? Let me go, Sarah said. John released her. I'm sorry, he said, but I need to know what happened. It was after lunch yesterday, Sarah said. Tyler saw you eating with Luke and me, that you left for practice. Tyler came up to me and I was waiting for the driver to take me to White Birch. Tyler said he had a problem, a moral issue, and he wanted to talk about it to me. I said that seemed weird since he hates me, and he said that he was why he was asking me. He couldn't count on his friends to give him an honest answer. Well, what was the problem? John asked. He said he was with some of his friends that night and they saw you with a bunch of other guys running into high school, Sarah replied. The next thing they know, the school was on fire and you were running away. He's been trying ever since to decide whether he should tell the authorities. His friends said no, but it's been bothering him. And you believed him? John demanded. I didn't know what to believe, Sarah said. I thought about asking Luke, but I couldn't trust him to keep his mouth shut. Tyler said the guys you were with looked like grubs. But you don't know any grubs, do you, John? Except for your family, I mean? They weren't grubs, John said. If he told Sarah the truth, she'd confront Tyler or go to the authorities. Either way, his family would be the ones to suffer. They were clabbers, guys from college probably. We were drunk. We didn't swap names and addresses. Was it their idea, Sarah asked. John wanted to say yes. He hadn't known what they were going to do until it was too late. But there was only so many lies he felt like telling. One of them had matches, he said. Instead, we thought it was a great idea. I thought it was a great idea. Why, John? Sarah cried. I was angry at Mom, he said, for caring more about her students than she does about me. But Sarah, if Tyler goes to the authorities, they'll blame her. You're the only one they'll blame, Sarah said. Yeah, but I deserve it, John said. Mom didn't do anything wrong, but they'll throw her out of White Birch. They'll punish Alex and Miranda, too. They'll say I lied about being with Clavers and that it was my family's idea. You should tell them a few days before, Sarah said. You saw them a few days before, Sarah said. John nodded. Sarah took a deep breath. I'll tell Tyler you said you were too drunk to remember what happened. John, if you turn yourself in, will they do anything to your family? I don't know, John said. I don't want to risk it. But if you want, I'll leave Sexton. I'll go to my brother's after Miranda's baby is born. But I won't be back. I won't be a clabber. I don't want to lose you, Sarah said. But I know that I've ever had you. How can I love you when I don't think I like you? You were lonely, he said. You're making friends now. You'll find someone else. I'll be gone. You'll be okay. I don't want to be okay without you, she said. John, hold me. John didn't move. Go, he said. Catch the bus. I'll walk to school. You'll be late, she said. Don't worry about me, he said. Take care of yourself. Sarah paused for a moment, but then she began running from him. He he'd had her and he lost her. He could blame whoever he wanted, whatever he wanted, Tyler, his family, the moon itself, but no one of that mattered. He was alone. He would always be alone. That was all he deserved. Friday, July 3rd. Practice had been brutal all week. Coach drove them beyond their capabilities, calling them every name in the book when they came short of his expectations. Each practice ended with chants, louder and more craze, about what Sexton players were going to do to the White Birch grubs. Nothing was too violent or obscene. It was hard each day to go home and return being nice John, friendly John, big brother John. He tried his best, but he mostly thought about everything he'd done, everything he'd lost. Mom called that night. He couldn't remember the last time he'd heard her sound so happy, so relieved. Alice gave me the complete report yesterday, she said. He says he's never seen Miranda look so good. Miranda can't get over how well they're feeding her chicken and fish every single day. She walks around the ward for exercise, but mostly she lies in bed and gets pampered. The baby's thriving and everything's going wonderfully. She's really looking forward to working for Lisa. She says she hadn't realized how much of the greenhouse work was taken out of her until she fainted. John listened patiently, making the appropriate noises when Mom would expect her to hear them. Jeffrey doesn't think he can get Alex in to see Miranda next week, but he'll try for the week after. Mom continued, and he'll check in on Miranda if she had the baby, and he'll get Alex in then. Also, I wish Alex could see her daily, but it's better than nothing. Jeffrey's really being wonderful about it. The soccer match is tomorrow, John said. Are you coming, Mom? Oh, honey, I wish I could, Mom replied. I was given a ticket, but one of the boys in my class is on the team. I gave him my ticket so his father could see him play. Lisa will be there, and Gabe. Yeah, John said, knowing in Mom's eyes they were all the family he needed. I'll see you next time, Mom said. After Miranda has the baby, we'll all come over and cheer you on. Okay, he said, take care, Mom. John heard her say, I love you, as he hung up the phone. When he was a kid, his father used to go to his ball games. John loved to play, knowing his father was watching, cheering him on. But after the divorce, Dad lived too far away to get to the games. John used the anger he felt and disappointment to make him play harder. That's how he played on Saturday, he told himself, harder than he'd ever played before. End of chapter 8.